Good morning. His Excellency the President of the Republic, Nadu Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the 16th occupant of the Golden Stool, the Asantehene Otumfuo the second, Anano, eminent clergy, the leadership of the Chief Justice, Mrs. Gertrude Araba Esaba Saki Tokunu, Justice of the Supreme Court of Ghana, retired in an active service. I can see His Lordship Justice Gache, Justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, also retired in an active service. I can see His Lordship Justice Kusiapia. Honorable Ministers of State, Honorable Asantehene Minister, Deputy Attorney General Afretua Yeboah, Deputy Attorney General Ms. Dana Sunaba Dapa, former Attorney General, I recognize the unmistakable presence of Mr. Joe Gatti, the President of the GhanaBarAssociation, members of the Bar Council, President of the Ashanti Regional Bar, members of the Bar, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, it's always a delight to be at the annual conference of the GhanaBarAssociation, and it's even more exciting to be here in Kumasi, the capital of the Ashanti region. And I must acknowledge our big fortune in having the attendance of this event by the Otikokoso, the Asantehene Otumfuo the second. To my mind, this is only the second time Otumfuo has attended a bar conference. And perhaps our fortune today, apart from his status as an honorary member of the bar, is also because his beautiful wife, Lady Julia, is a lawyer. The Otumfuo indeed calls me Meba to rate my son. On the case here, your son is truly appreciative of your wise counsel at all times. I'm not surprised that Yeboah brought this conference to Kumasi. Indeed, he's a true Asante man. And as his last conference as bar president, which better place to hold the event than at his own backyard? But on the more serious note, I must convey my felicitations to Mr. Yachampon Boafo, President of the Bar and Executive Council. Collaborating with you in the national interest has been a pleasure. And I wish you, Yao, and your executives the very best in your future endeavors as you bow out. Learned friends, since March 2021, by the grace of God, I've had a chance that few lawyers have ever had to serve as the Attorney General Minister for Justice of our great republic, the 25th since independence. To work with wonderful public servants, wonderful administrators, best law enforcement agents, and indeed great support staff in the Office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice. The enormity of responsibility of the grand old Office of Attorney General is recorded in history. Sir Patrick Hastings, who had a long career as a successful barrister in England, but a rather short stint as Attorney General of England and Wales, between January 1924 and November 1924, described the role of the Attorney General as, and I quote, his idea of hell. Much earlier, Francis Bacon, Attorney General and Lord Chancellor of England and Wales, in the 17th century, described it, and again I quote, as the painfulest task in the realm. Quite recently, the immediate past Attorney General of the United States of America, William Barr, who had two stints as Attorney General, first under President George W. Bush Sr., when he was only 39 years, and the second under President Trump, authored a book chronicling his days as Attorney General, and guess what the title was? The title was One Damn Thing After Another. 3.5 years into the role, I consider it an honor and a privilege, although not without its challenges, to be the Attorney General and your leader thus far. With the unlimited licenses given to me as leader of the bar to address conference on any topic, I intend to focus a big part of this speech on using law, particularly public legal service, as an instrument for effecting change in Ghanaian society, whilst making some remarks on the important theme for the conference as well. I will record progress so far made by the Office of the Attorney General in this regard. The task of being an Attorney General in the second term of a government is no easy one. It involves coming in at a time that the government has implemented a set of policies in its first term and made some tough and hard decisions, which may not be necessarily popular with the people. As the Attorney General, it involves making yourself unpopular by telling your colleague ministers that they cannot pursue certain legislation and policies, which, although in the national interest, may be incompatible with the law. I remember the painful advice I gave to the Minister for Finance and Domestic Debt Restructuring at a difficult time of the nation, as well as the advice I gave to the Minister of Health, perhaps at a more difficult time in the history of the nation during the COVID-19 crisis. In our peculiar political environment, it also involves pitching yourself as a sworn enemy of your political adversaries to decisions you make that they may consider as impinging on their political fortunes, particularly in terms of prosecution and defense of civil actions against the government. However, I've braved the challenges of the office and remained undaunted because I love the law and I love utilizing the law as an instrument for developing Ghanaian society. With courage and strength, I have taken the slings and arrows of a critical free media, even when they are unjustified or wrong. I'm strong in my conviction that there is no other institution that has affected and has the authority and the jurisdiction to affect so many components of justice in this country than the Office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Whatever I've done since 2021, I've done it in the best interest of Ghana and state attorneys and staff at the law office. And I could not be prouder of our record of achievement over the last 3.5 years. And I'm happy to note that since my initial address of this conference at Bolgatanga in September 2021, I've delivered and in some cases exceeded the delivery of every single promise I've made to you. Three years ago, when I stood before you at Bolgatanga, and I took to build a formidable civil litigation team capable of zealously protecting the interests of the state in litigation, just as private legal practitioners do for their clients. The civil division, with the leadership of my humble self and my able deputies, has lived up to this challenge and done so much to protect our taxpayers' pockets in litigation in a way that staggers the imagination. Through an unwavering commitment to justice and the protection of the interests of the state, the Office of the Attorney General has succeeded in saving the state many billions of United States dollars, being the equivalent of over 15 trillion Ghana cedis in numerous civil litigations in Ghana and in various international fora since I assumed office. The era of unwarranted, dubious, and scandalous judgment debt against the state, I can say without any fear of equivocation, are clearly a thing of the past. There has not been a time that the state has been more exposed to international litigation than the era in which we live. Industrialization, the expansion of the Ghanaian economy, and increase in investments have enhanced the risk of the nation in dealing with challenges filed on the international stage on respect of disputes arising from the state's relations with corporations and multinationals. The state has had to litigate in the domestic court of Norway, from the Oslo District Court all the way to that country's Supreme Court. It has had to defend numerous arbitration claims in the Permanent Court of Arbitration, the London Court of International Arbitration, ad hoc arbitration tribunals, with seats of arbitration being Paris, New York, Stockholm, and what have you. It is gratifying to note that in each of the international arbitration claims filed since 2021, the state has achieved favorable outcomes with little or no cost to the nation. We have protected state properties, preserved the nation's rights, and fought off claims for billions of United States dollars against the state, even in situations where a particular decision of a minister is impugned by an international tribunal. The most remarkable feature of this development is that a sizable amount of this litigation is conducted by personnel of the Office of the Attorney General, led by the Attorney General himself and his deputies. Such is the strength of the capacity of the office that now memorials, pleadings, and written submissions filed by the office compares favorably with those filed by any lawyer on the international stage. And we defend these claims in the face of the severe constraints of challenges which have always characterized working in the Office of the Attorney General when representing the state in these actions. And indeed, I must state that I'm aware that some hired advocates for these unsuccessful claimants against the state and self-styled social commentators masquerading as civil society and experts in all subjects, except perhaps the creation of man, hastily take to social media to denigrate the effort of the state in defending such gargantuan claims, and in fact, distort the effect of awards and judgments in favor of the state. I can only say in reply that there ought to be a modicum of patriotism. Ironically, these same people are quick to trumpet adverse awards given against Ghana in the past, obviously basking in the joy of such situations. Can they just pause for a moment to reflect on what would have happened to the Ghanaian economy if even a fraction of these claims for billions of US dollars and trillions of Ghana cedis has succeeded? In the area of prosecution, the Prosecutions Division has ably lived up to its constitutional duty of being the prosecutor of all crimes in the country. They have pursued justice with courage based on the evidence and the law in a way that makes me very proud. Even though prosecution of so-called high-profile economic crime 2021 to date, at least 76 persons, including 18 foreigners, have been convicted. They include the acclaimed Chinese Galamsey Queen, Aisha Huang, who was convicted on 4th December 2023 of offenses committed between 2014 and 2016 in the era of the previous government. Most of the convicts were sentenced under the new law at 995 to a minimum of 15 years plus a hefty fine for a non-Ghanaian. Currently, over 140, minimum of 15 years plus a heavy fine in the case of a Ghanaian, and a minimum of 20 years plus a fine for a non-Ghanaian. Currently, over 140 cases of illegal mining involving over 850 accused persons are being prosecuted in courts in the Western, Eastern, Ashanti, Greater, and Upper East regions of Ghana. Some are near conclusion. The unsung heroes of the Office of Attorney General are the Legislative Drafting Division. They are that army of well-disciplined, properly trained, meticulous lawyers whose task it is to set the legislative framework for all we do. Without them, none of the three arms of government can function. The Legislative Drafting Division has been responsible for carrying my vision of law reform in both civil and criminal aspects of the law. They have paid a great attention to the public policy of the law and have drafted in all about 60 acts of parliament and innumerable subsidiary legislation since 2021. Whilst placing on record the yeoman's effort to the various divisions of the Office of Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, which have kept the nation safe and sound, we cannot ignore the hitherto deplorable conditions in which state attorneys work. My visit to the head offices of various agencies under the Ministry of Justice revealed hugely undesirable working conditions and the lack of basic tools for service to the nation. In order to address this, in February 2022, on account of a directive made by His Excellency the President for the Minister for Finance to urgently assist the ministry with some funds for its operations, I purchased 91 vehicles for the ministry, which to date represent the biggest fleet ever acquired for the ministry. Thus, the Legal Aid Commission, which previously had only 6 vehicles, received 13 more. The Economic and Organized Crimes Office added 13 vehicles to their fleet. The Council for Law Reporting, which had only 2 vehicles, received 4 more. The Law Reform Commission, which had only 1 vehicle, acquired in 1996, received 2. Two indeed makes a difference to some people. The Copyright Office, whose last vehicle was acquired in 2008, during the time of Honorable Joe Gatti as Attorney General, received 2 more. To lay the building blocks for the transformation of 2 very important institutions, whose mandate is crucial for enhancing access to justice delivery and the modernization of the law in Ghana, the Legal Aid Commission and the Law Reform Commission, the President on 10th August 2022 launched the Legal Aid Commission Fund and the Law Reform Commission Fund. The government indeed demonstrated its commitment to transforming the 2 institutions by donating an initial amount of 1 million Ghana cedis into each of the funds. I am of the fervent hope that the boards of the 2 institutions who are by law charged with responsibility for managing the funds will come up with innovative means of ensuring that sufficient contributions and donations are made to the funds to end the perennial lack of funds syndrome, which has always plagued these 2 important institutions of state. The dreadful office accommodation challenge of the Ministry of Justice was indeed legendary. The situation was so critical that some state attorneys were utilizing shipping containers as their offices when I assumed office. Work on a 12-story building comprising 10 levels above ground and a 2-tier underground car park to accommodate the Ministry of Justice, which incidentally, the current president commenced in 2001, when he was the Attorney General, has stalled over the years, with the state of works officially recorded as only 36% complete by June 2021, when I visited the site with the president. Through the necessary commitment of resources and diligent supervision, I'm happy to state that by the grace of God, the 12-story edifice named the Law House, the new head office of Attorney General, Ministry of Justice, has been completed and was duly commissioned on 10th June 2024. And indeed, I have since moved into that building. Mr. President, I dream of a modern public legal service for our nation, fully equipped to discharge its onerous constitutional and statutory duties to the Republic. Towards realizing this dream, I'm of the hope that soon each of the regional capitals of the country from which the Attorney General operates will also boast of its law house. I have commenced discussions in this regard with the World Bank towards the possibility of funding the project. But definitely, we know that this can only be completed in the next term of the NPP government. So we need to pay the 8 after all. The expansion of the Ghanaian economy with its attendant myriad of needs calls for an enhanced public legal service to address the complexity of emerging challenges. The number of state attorneys, presently about 300, is completely inadequate. This partly accounts for the inordinate delays in the delivery of opinions, legal opinions, defense of claims against the state, and prosecution of crime. We need about 1,500 state attorneys for a proper discharge of the functions of the Attorney General under Article 80 of the Constitution. We need to embark on a massive recruitment exercise of lawyers for the public service in order to satisfy the demands of the state. In 2021-2022, the capacity of the office was augmented with the recruitment of about 60 attorneys. Processes are currently underway to employ a further 70 attorneys, with interviews scheduled for the latter part of this month. And this will bring the number of attorneys recruited over the past 3 years to 130. I envisage that every ministry, department, agency, or district assembly ought to be serviced by at least one state attorney. The situation whereby some ministries, departments, agencies, or metropolitan municipal district assemblies employ their own lawyers does not augur well for proper harmony and synchronization of government legal work. Thus, my vision is that in the near future, to ensure cohesion in the public service and to avoid an uncoordinated approach which leads to inefficiencies, all lawyers working for each of the public institutions ought to be employed by the Office of Attorney General. In the meantime, pending the firm institution of such a policy, I have planned a conference of all lawyers working in the public service, whether they are state attorneys or not, for some time in October. The conference, to be organized with the support of Professor Kofi Abochi of UPSA, will provide a platform for knowledge sharing and refresher engagement with the ultimate objective of building the capacity of lawyers working for the state in various agencies and departments in the areas of negotiation, structuring, drafting and review of government contracts, contemporary issues in international arbitration, and ensuring improved interagency collaboration. To build that desired world-class legal service for Ghana, there's a pressing need for lawyers generally, particularly those in the public service, to constantly add value to themselves. It was with this motive that a partnership between the Georgetown University, Washington, D.C., and the government of Ghana, represented by the Attorney General, which was executed in September 2021, seeks to ensure that each year, 5 lawyers from both the public and private sectors would benefit from a postgraduate legal education sponsored by a scholarship jointly funded by Georgetown University and the Secretariat of Ghana. Indeed, the first batch of 5 lawyers who profited from this arrangement successfully completed their studies and returned in May 2023. I must acknowledge the hiccup that the arrangement has suffered in view of funding difficulties, but I will explore means of boosting them. In addition to this, my ministry assists state attorneys to regularly pursue various academic courses relevant to their roles and sponsored by some institutions in prestigious universities abroad, including the so-called Ivy League institutions. We must perceive law as a tool for promoting good governance and creating a Ghanaian business environment characterized by transparency, certainty, and fairness, and in which the interests of the nation are secured. For this matter, there are many areas of our legal system that require the intervention of the state to introduce reforms to ensure that the quest for private sector development and foreign investment does not have the vicious result of impoverishing the state. There is also the need to ensure that crime or wrongdoing does not go unpunished, particularly for the privileged in society. In this regard, I've had the kind cooperation of the President of the Republic and his cabinet, as well as the Parliament of Ghana, in introducing some far-reaching reforms. A little over a month ago, the Ghana Arbitration Center, a requirement of the Alternative Dispute Resolution Center Act 2010 at 798, which had been outstanding since 2010, was set up. The establishment of the ADR Center presents a viable opportunity for multi-billion-dollar commercial disputes and cases involving the use of the nation's natural resources to be resolved right here in Ghana. It will also enable members of the GhanaBarAssociation to sharpen their skills in the resolution of such disputes. Taking account of Ghana's strong democratic credentials, the ADR Center should propel Ghana into an arbitration hub in Africa, particularly West Africa. Further reform of the arbitration environment in Ghana is needed. In this regard, again, I have the firm instructions of the President to take steps to ensure that most international arbitrations involving Ghana take place right here in Ghana and are regulated by Ghanaian law. Thus, I will present to Cabinet in the next few days, as part of the process for the passage into law, an amendment to the State Property and Contracts Act of 1960, CA4, to mandate all contracts involving the state and its agencies as parties to not only stipulate Ghana law as a governing law, but also to have Ghana as a seat of arbitration, and with the ADR Center in Ghana being the venue for such arbitration. With this amendment, the practice whereby the state and Ghanaian lawyers travel to various jurisdictions, Paris, New York, Singapore, and London, etc., for the conduct of arbitration, although enjoyable for the lawyers, will come to an end. An important piece of legislation introduced recently, which seeks to reduce unnecessary costs to the taxpayer, is the Contract Amendment Act 2023 at 1114, by which public officers are prohibited from entering into a contract on behalf of the state in which the rate of interest is stipulated as commercial interest. By Act 1114, it is expected that contracts with high rates of interest, especially compound interest, which results in huge judgment debts and financial loss to the state, as occurred in the NDK Financial Services Limited against the Asantehene matter a few years ago, will be avoided. The criminal landscape of our country also witnessed some reform by an effort to ease congestion in the courts and prisons through the passage of the Criminal and Other Offences Procedure Amendment Act 2022 at 1079, which formally introduced plea bargaining into the criminal jurisprudence of the country. Without a doubt, the most far-reaching reform of criminal law practice in this country will be achieved when the law that will enhance the speed of adjudication of criminal cases and will address the problems associated with the jury system is enacted. I therefore call on Parliament to, as a matter of urgency, pass the Criminal and Other Offences Procedure Amendment Bill, sponsored by the Office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice, which are laid in Parliament on 14th March 2024. Our criminal practice continues to be steeped in the very old and traditional ways of doing things, known to the common law tradition, even where the masters of the tradition have long reformed. For instance, in Britain and the United States, interlocutory appeals in criminal practice are significantly controlled and virtually eliminated. Further, not every verdict in criminal trials is appealable all the way to the highest court. Whilst mindful of the constitutional imperatives in our legal system, the bill seeks to place due restrictions on interlocutory appeals by postponing the filing of same to only after determination by the trial court of what we call the submission of no case. Scrapping of trials on indictment, especially where the offense, except where the offense is punishable by death or life imprisonment. Providing for examination of witnesses by video conferencing, adoption of proceedings in criminal matters, day-to-day trial of all criminal cases, except where the same is impracticable, and reform of the jury system to reduce the list of exemptions from jury service and the composition of the jury. My office is also in the process of preparing a new legal profession bill as part of measures to comprehensively and in a more sustainable way address, among other things, issues relating to access to legal education, rules on call to the bar, and regulation of professional conduct. I'm, however, happy to note that in the past 4 years, we have recorded the highest admission of persons to study the law and the biggest call to the bar of persons in the nation's history. In all, over 3,000 persons have so far been called to the bar since 2021. In 2022 alone, over 1,000 lawyers were called to the bar, the highest in the nation's history at that time. In 2023, this record was broken with the admission of 1,286 lawyers. And indeed, I, as Attorney General in 2021, personally ensured the admission of some 499 students into the Ghana School of Law by presenting a petition to the General Legal Council, a situation for which the bar president still holds a grudge. And indeed, I won the vote by just 8-7. It was a narrow 8-7 victory, very sweet one. It is correct to say that indeed, for many of the junior lawyers in this room, your presence has been made possible by the positive decisions to broaden access to the legal profession by the Otumfuo administration. We believe in broadening access to legal education whilst preserving standards and quality, cherished values without which the legal profession will lose its relevance in society. With these giant strides, I'm confident that the future of the legal profession is bigger, brighter, and better. Mr. President, the lofty ideas expressed today about the creation of a sound business environment and using law as an instrument of change in the public sector will not materialize without a sustenance of the democratic order in which we live. Fundamental to democracy and the preservation of the rule of law is the organization of free and fair elections. The centrality of elections to democracy, and by necessary implication the rule of law, implies that irrespective of the circumstances in which Ghana finds itself, the Electoral Commission must live up to its constitutional mandate of providing the mechanism for the citizenry to express themselves through the conduct of credible and fair elections. The indispensability of democracy as a tool for good governance has been expressed many times in history. Indeed, in the words of the acclaimed British statesman Sir Winston Churchill in his address to UK Parliament in November 1947, and I quote, "No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all-wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time." End of quote. National elections represent a preeminent and, I would say, undeniable opportunity for the electorate of every country to exercise real power over how they are governed and by whom. It is a means by which the state will be preserved. The distinguished son of Ghana, former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, may his soul rest in peace, in a speech at the CDD Conti Ni Akwamu lecture in June 2016, had this to say of the strength of Ghana's democracy. It says, "Ghana has thrived under democracy since it was reintroduced under the Fourth Republic. And our society, as well as our economy, has thrived as a result. We must never stop reminding ourselves of that fact. Yes, our country has its problems, but all countries have problems." End of quote. The credibility of Ghanaian democracy and the conduct of elections in this country can clearly not be denied by any objective onlooker. We must resist the vain efforts of naysayers who constantly sow seeds of doubt about the credibility of Ghanaian elections. The Electoral Commission has had a sound appreciation of the sacred constitutional responsibility it bears to the people since 1992. Remarkably, it remained unshaken in its quest even in the teeth of COVID-19 and rose to the occasion in 2020 in delivering an internationally affirmed, free, fair, and perhaps the most transparent elections since the inception of the Constitution in 1992. It bears emphasizing, I've said the inception of the Constitution in 1993, because legally it started on 7 January 1993. It bears emphasizing that an election is a process, among other things. It includes the demarcation of boundaries, registration of eligible voters, the creation of voters' register, printing of ballot papers, distribution of ballot papers to voting centers, supervision of voting, the casting of votes, counting and progress, processing of the vote, the declaration of the winner or winners. So far, I have not noticed anything untoward about the Electoral Commission's handling of the process. Even though Ghana has come far in consolidating democracy as a way of life, we can consider free and fair elections in this country as a matter of course. We cannot take that progress for granted. For this reason, we continue to talk about these things as a way of entrenching those undoubted values we hold dear and warding off potential wreckers of the peace of the nation. We must, apart from being disreputable, poses a far greater threat to cohesion society if it comes from lawyers. In social media interactions, lawyers ought to be mindful of the requirements of the profession insofar as ethics is concerned. Technology did not eradicate ethics, neither did it render the need for ethical compliance any less important or necessary. The time-honored requirements to be truthful and not to unjustifiably assail the integrity of others, despite the character of people and abuse the rights of others, ought to be strictly adhered to by lawyers. Lawyers indeed have no business promoting election-related violence. In talking about the place of the law in the conduct of a free and fair election, we cannot forget the work of the judiciary because it sits at the very heart of our society and our democracy. Judges are often called to make decisions on some of the most difficult questions arising from the conduct of elections. They are decisions that very few of us would feel comfortable making. However, it is judges who, with their wisdom derived from long experience, training, and discipline, will make such decisions in furtherance of the principle that justice should be done. We therefore have a duty to support the judiciary and not to denigrate that important institution. Ghana has gained a reputation worldwide for its justice system. Central to that reputation is the independence, integrity of the judiciary, and the quality of judgments emanating from our court, with decisions cited sometimes in court around the world. I can confidently say that I have been an Attorney General in whose tenure the judiciary has demonstrated complete independence and strength through decisions it gives in cases involving the state. In both civil and criminal decisions, in both civil and criminal jurisdictions, my office has had many victories, but we have also experienced a few adverse ones. Examples are decisions of the Supreme Court in the removal of the former Auditor General, Daniel Domlevo matter, the imposition of restrictions in the COVID-19 case, and then, of course, the decision given in the Narcotics Control Commission matter. In a few situations where I consider the decision patently wrong and perverse to our legal system, I have resorted to processes for a correction of same through review or an appellate procedure. Judges must also understand that they are not enemies of the people, or indeed of the government. The role of a judge is not only to restrain abuse of power, but also uphold the work of government when it acts within its powers or is on the right path. Our judiciary must embrace the concept of open justice by publishing and explaining decisions and by allowing access to the court in person and through broadcast in very important matters. It is for this reason that I'm proud to state that as Attorney General, I've led in this quest of ensuring open justice in Ghana as a way of dispelling misconceptions, misinterpretations, and misinterpretations of court decisions by making a formal application, indeed 2 formal applications to the Chief Justice for live broadcast of particular court proceedings of overwhelming public interest. In point of fact, the first time there was live broadcast of proceedings in court in a case other than a presidential election petition was this year, pursuant to my application, and it happened with the kind cooperation of the Chief Justice, Saki Tokunu. And it is worthy to note that the United States Supreme Court does not even allow complete live broadcast of proceedings. We must therefore appreciate our progress in this regard. As I resume my seat, and I think at this time it is also appropriate, it is appropriate to wish Her Ladyship the Chief Justice a happy birthday in advance. A happy 62nd birthday in advance. I'm aware she's going to Malaysia. The roses will come in Malaysia. As I resume my seat, I must emphasize the need for a strong bar as a partner for nation building. A fragmented bar is not in the interest of the bar itself. Neither is it for society. We must have one strong bar association. We must make the processes for physical participation of all lawyers in the annual bar conference flexible. I'm aware that some lawyers attempted to register a week or two ago but were not permitted to do so. They thus cannot vote or make their voices heard in important decisions. This situation cannot be right. We are still a small family. Our processes must be such as to encourage participation of all. Else, a time will come when lawyers will find it cumbersome or tedious attending a bar conference and participating in important decisions. And I must say that I miss the days when lawyers could show up in the morning of conference, register, and be allowed to participate in the conference. And it does not present any security concerns at all. Indeed, we must find a way to change. I'm aware that this year is an election year. May I take the opportunity to wish all the candidates the very best, and may the best candidates win. God bless us all. Thank you very much.